it's fitting. Last time I did one of these was 1 week ago. I was trying to get to a place of doing it on a daily basis, but I haven't got there yet. But so it's the second live that I'd entitled Stream of Consciousness. So I'm just going, man, this shirt do not work on this hoodie. But I titled this one Police Terrorism. If I'm not loud enough, say something in the comments. I'll try to be louder. But I titled this one Police Terrorism because I want to sort of expound on the video that I shared on my Facebook page that you can see on the May 30th Alliance page. It's a video of police officers from District 2 coming out in the middle of the night at 4 in the morning. At least 8 officers coming in, confiscating items that were being that have been donated by community members to assist protesters in the weather during the occupation. So this is something that has been a regular occurrence since we've been forced to the front. They come by. It used to be in the evenings. It started out in the mornings, then it went to the afternoons, and then it was in the evenings, and then it shifted to it shifted over. Man, he stole our chicken. That's crazy. Anyways, but then it shifted over to the night. So the last 3 times, they done came in the middle of the night, 4 in the morning, with police officers. They come with multiple cars, and they make this big show of trying to tape blankets. Last night, they went out of their way to talk about how we was obstructing the sidewalk and we was blocking the sidewalk. When it was clear that it was, on the video, it's clear that it's room to walk through the sidewalk and that the sidewalk isn't obstructed. It's the same tactic that they would use sometimes at City Market, where they would, they'll tell somebody to, quit resisting arrest before the person has even resisted, to give the implications through their verbal statements that something that has not happened is actually in fact happening. And so that's been a regular occurrence. They did that again last night, where they talked about the sidewalk being obstructed. The sidewalk wasn't obstructed. They wrote out citations for the sidewalk, for things being housed on the sidewalk, even though they have no proof that the things that they confiscated on the sidewalk belong to the people that they wrote those citations for. And all of these things, these is all forms, these is all tactics that they trying to use to get us to stop doing what it is that we doing, to try to get us to stop being outside of City Hall. These things are not being done in order to keep safety or even to keep some type of semblance of law and order, because it's not even a disturbance that's taking place when they coming out and doing these things. It may even be a more arguable stance if they was coming out in the middle of the day and it was busy and somehow people couldn't walk back and forth to where they got to go to. But as it stands, they coming out in the middle of the night when it's nobody who could even be in the proximity to be bothered by us being out here, and then they're making a show of it by bringing all of these police officers and then trying to write these citations which you have to go inside of City Hall to deal with, and you deal with, and it's ran like a kangaroo court. You have no right to any kind of legal defense, even though the city has lawyers in the legal defense. Everybody that's inside of the hearing all work for the police, all work for the city. The police department who give you the citation, that's the witness. The person that's sitting up there that decides whether you liable or not is a hearing officer who also works for the city. And then the lawyer that's arguing that you should be held liable is also employed by the city. So that's what happens with these citations. So essentially what they're doing is they're trying to get paid from us being out here and doing this occupation. They want us to pay them for being outside of City Hall, outside. Not even, at this point, we're not even on city property. We're outside on public property. So they want us to pay them to be on public property. That's essentially what's happening. And that's a form of police terrorism. It's similar to what was going on and if we looked into, and this is another one of the things that going forward we have to start doing, when I say we, I mean including myself. We have to start getting when they just did this little rollout with all these crime stats and with the murders and with the violent crimes and property crimes. We need to start getting that same type of information and them same type of stats when it goes to the amount of times that they arrest unhoused folks, or the amount of stops or the amount of times that they deployed to harass unhoused folks, or the amount of times we need to we need stats on just like last year they came out with stats where that said that in Rockford black people was 3 times as likely to be pulled over by police officers. We need those same kind of stats on a regular basis, so that way we can, instead of just pontificating about these things and just philosophizing about these things, we can point to substantial evidence of these things, and that's what we've been able to do for the last 10 months. Last year on May 30th, and after May 30th, multiple times the mayor talked about how he was for releasing videos once cases were closed. The state's attorney Jay Hanley ran on the platform releasing videos once cases are closed. They unjustly dropped the charges for the police officer that assaulted Sage, and that's what that was. That was an assault. They unjustly dropped those charges, and they released that video, and that should set into place a domino effect of videos that should be released from 2020. A domino effect of videos. The videos should be released from outside of City Hall, where protesters got assaulted on the first Monday when we was out here, where Carla Red assaulted a protester, where multiple officers from D2 assaulted another protester, throwing them to the ground and them hitting their head against the pole. It should be videos being released of every week at City Market. It should be body cam videos being released from the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department for the actions that happened at City Market. It's body cam video. It is body cam video footage of that young girl and them young children being pepper sprayed. All of them videos need to be released. As all of these charges from all of these weeks are dropped, they need to release all of these videos. All of these things and all of these, those is microaggressions. What they did last night, coming and trying to take chairs. I done had unhoused folks who walk by here, talk to us and tell us about times they've been somewhere and police officers come and pick them up and take them from one side of town and drop them off to a whole nother side of town and, maybe write them a citation or a ticket. I done had unhoused folks come and tell me about times that they've walked and a police officer followed them for blocks upon blocks and almost trying to instigate some type of negative interaction for them to have, or some type of negative confrontation for them to have. When talking about the extents they have to go to try to avoid being harassed and being terrorized by the police, because that's what that is. Having to teach black children to not talk back and to say yes sir and no sir, or yes sir and no ma'am, and keep their hands on the wheel, and to have their ID in certain places. Those is all things that you have to do because of terroristic acts that have the police have been waging psychological warfare on black communities and low-income and working-class communities for decades. And that's terrorist. It's terroristic. The things that these police officers do in communities, if America was to send their army or their military or their navy to a different country and these type of things was being done there, they would use that as an excuse as to why democracy isn't there, as to why they need to overthrow that country or overthrow that nation and give power to somebody else because the people that's in power is abusing it. The things that they do, the things that they have done for the past 10 months on camera, these are not things that are exceptions. These are things that are norms. And it may be people who don't understand it in the moments, and that's something that it may be people that in some of these moments don't realize the gravity of some of these situations and the importance of some of these situations and the urgency of some of these situations, but they just passed the George Floyd crime bill that people are, and again, I'm not saying that I've read all of this. I haven't read this bill from beginning to end, but it's a bill that they just passed that passed in the House. It hasn't passed in the Senate. The George Floyd crime bill, and one of the things that people are saying is that this crime bill wouldn't have saved George Floyd, and that's something that I think that is important to point out, is that we are in the very beginning phase of actually getting change for these issues. The very beginning stage. The very beginning stage of it is they try to co-opt certain people to try to get the system tries to co-opt certain people to get them to buy into the system and tell them what few things that they can change to get people to stop complaining about the system. The system capitulates a little bit and talks about gradual reforms or slow reforms that it'll make, and it gives a lot of lip service and it has a lot of meetings. But if you don't continue to push with more vigor than you push to get to this point, then that less than what they saying they gonna give to us is what'll be given to us. It's gonna take more to get the actual crime bill that would save George Floyd's life than it took to get the fake George Floyd crime bill that they passing. This trial that's coming up next week, this trial is gonna say a lot about where America stands. But I don't believe it's going to say a lot about where America stands on the basis of whether this officer is found guilty or not guilty, because I think that we are so deep within the police terrorism that it's irrelevant whether this officer is found guilty or not guilty. What will be important is if after this trial is over with, after these things, after the proceedings have happened and they've said whether he is guilty or not guilty, what are we going to do in the spring and the summer to make sure that we can stop having George Floyd's happen and that we can stop having to have trials of Derek Chauvins, even though we barely ever get those trials, and then we even barely ever get any type of guilty verdict. And even that is insufficient because it's pointless to putting him in prison, putting this one man in prison for a life sentence is not going to change the societal issues that led to this man committing those acts. So even if a guilty verdict was to be found, unless it's true and genuine, people dedicated to getting more people involved in building a mass movement around not just highlighting the macro aggressions or the culminations of these police terroristic acts, but even highlighting the microaggressions, the harassing people, the police officers coming to shooting sites and taking their time to let the paramedics get there and to get people help. Police officers and police chiefs in cities that push this false narrative, like this city is doing right now, this false narrative saying that they genuinely want to fix issues and they want to stop crime and they want to give equity and they want to do racial healing and do all of these things. But then when they hold press conferences about the crime that took place last year, they never say the words poverty. They never speak on the issue of poverty. They never speak on the issue of lack of education. They never speak on the issue of lack of employment. They never speak on the issues of it being food deserts on certain sides of town. They never speak on the issues on data that has been linked to certain foods that you eat affecting your mental state, your mental state. They don't want to talk about the actual root causes, because speaking on the actual root causes means that they have to address things that allowed them to get to the place that they at. Root causes of black disenfranchisement allowed the mayor, McNamara, to be the mayor of the city, because that's the status quo that he got elected on. Root causes of these societal issues allowed Dan O'Shea to be a chief of police, because that's what he's been doing. That's what he has been working on. These are this idea that they come out there, the same thing with the woman out there for the Family Peace Center. The idea that they come out here and they speak to because they are speaking, whether they are conscious enough of it or not, they are speaking to black people and black communities. They may be doing all of this for lip service to keep white communities and make more privileged communities to feel at ease. But the people who are affected by the crime stats are predominantly black and brown communities and low-class working communities. Okay, so that is who they are speaking to, whether they understand that or not. And they're speaking to them, and they are saying that domestic violence is a root cause. They are saying domestic violence is the cause of shootings, and domestic violence is the cause of strong arm robberies, or domestic violence is the cause of Grand Theft Auto because of people being young and seeing domestic violence in homes. But domestic violence is not a root cause. Domestic violence is an effect. Domestic violence is a symptom. Root causes of domestic violence are the same thing as it is for gun violence, the same thing as it is for any other type of violent crimes, and for most crime in general. And it's things like poverty. Poverty leads to domestic violence. It's things like lack of education. Lack of education leads, and poor education leads to domestic violence. De facto segregation and poor housing in areas leads to domestic violence. These and black communities know this better than any community, I would say, maybe in America, because of the things that black communities have had to deal with when it comes to domestic violence are a microcosm of some of the things that are dealt with in the society as a whole. It was a long time where some of the causes that of domestic violence in black households was because a black man or a black woman would go out of the household, and every turn that they would get, they would be told that they was less than, and they could never speak back. They would be pushed, and they would be insulted and disrespected, and they knew that they could not lash out or even not even lash out, but even respond to defend themselves, because that could lead to them being killed. That could lead to a much worse actions taking place. And so they had to bottle those emotions up. They had to bottle those responses up. Things that would be just responses, things that would be defending themselves, defending their respectability, defending themselves as a human being. They had to bottle those things up. And then those same people would have low income wages and low education and low opportunities, would be terrorized by police in their neighborhoods, would be terrorized by white terrorists and white American terroristic groups in neighborhoods, and they would go inside of households, and they would all those things that they would have bottled up would be released inside those households and would manifest into actions of domestic violence. And so you can't piss on my head and tell me that it's raining. I understand domestic violence, and that's not me sitting here saying that I've experienced domestic violence in the same extent that many people who have been heavily traumatized by it have. But I do understand that domestic violence is not something that begins these issues. By the time domestic violence has come into anybody's life, there are root issues that have led up to that happening. So even those press conferences that they're doing, those things are false. Since May 30th, everything that has happened, and before May 30th, it's just that since May 30th, I'm speaking from my personal understanding and my personal awakeness and my personal being conscious of some of these things. And even as I go back retroactively, this is the same cycle that they go through. When Barmore was killed, this was the cycle that they went through. When Demetrius Bennett was killed, they go through this cycle of trying to pretend like they want to change things, trying to appease things, trying to keep the status quo, trying to keep the minority percentage of people in this community at bay and okay with their circumstances, and hope that if they just give them every time that they ask for 10 things, if we just give them 1 or 2 things, hopefully that'll be enough where we can hold them back for 10 more years or 15 more years, and then maybe by then we'll give them 2 or 3 other things that was on that list from before. But the problem is, we live in a time now where we live in an information age, and we live in a technology age, and we can see what's going on in other states and in other cities, and not even just that, in other nations and other countries. And you can see about how people are fighting back in Africa against SARS. You can see how people in Palestine are fighting back. You can see how people in different sections of this country are fighting back, and the different things that they have gotten done. The states that have gotten drugs decriminalized. The different states that have had voter reenfranchisement, the different states that have had police officers be fired, that have forced mayors and forced different people to act on some of these things instead of just giving lip service. And so we are, so in Rockford specifically, we are in a place where there are multitudes of people whose lives have been destroyed by the Rockford Police Department, by the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department, by the Winnebago County Jail. And since they have been destroyed, that is the strong arm of this system. And that strong arm is unleashed or wielded by the mayor, by aldermen. And this is whether it's being done purposefully or not. Once you get to some of these positions, you are no longer in a place where you can say, well, I didn't do it personally, or well, I didn't have the power to change it. Okay, what power did you have? What did you do with the power you did have? What did you do with the platform that you did have? Nobody stops aldermen from having press conferences. When you get elected alderman, do you sign a paper that say you can't have a press conference? Again, we have to get to a place, and this is why I haven't personally been out here speaking heavily about choosing people to vote for, whether it be for aldermen, whether it be for school board. I will definitely strongly state, don't vote for Tom McNamara for mayor, because everything that he has done has spoken into anti-blackness, has spoken into houselessness, has spoken into anti freedom of speech, anti-right to assemble, right to assembly, and I think that is bordering on fascism, and I think that is dangerous as any community to agree with fascism, or to agree with people that are doing things that are against things that are supposed to be the bedrocks of this nation. Protesting is something that should be a bedrock of this nation. It should never be a mayor in any city that allows people who are protesting or people who are having demonstrations, people who are trying to organize for change, for betterment, to be terrorized by police officers. All right, that is British colonial activity. Okay, so I think that is dangerous to give a vote for that person, because what it says to the person that may come behind him. It's the same things that the same concept that people would speak about, voting for Reagan and voting for Nixon and voting for the first Bush, and even the second Bush is what led to getting to Trump. Okay, and people who supported Barry Goldwater is what led to getting to people like Trump. And so as you continue to, just because this man is a Democrat, or just because he takes pictures with basketball players, or just because he takes may do a podcast with black people, or take a picture with black people, or allow black people to take pictures of him, or walk with people down after with a black graduation, that don't change the fact that his actions when it comes to the political territory are anti-black. They are anti-First Amendment. They are anti-poverty. They are anti-houselessness. They are anti-mental health. He has allowed these police officers to traumatize people in his community for up to a year, and has not done anything to show he has any kind of moral integrity or moral fiber to speak out against it. He's a moral coward. So I will say explicitly to not vote for. I don't care if you got to write Hennessy on the ballot. Don't vote for him. But everybody else, these other people who are running for election, I have no opinions on voting for them or not voting for them. The same way I had no opinion on voting for Paul Carpenter or not voting for Jay Hanley, because we need an ideology. We need an ideology, and we need to be organized, and we need bases, so that way it should not matter whether it is a Democrat in office or a Republican in office or an independent in office. If somebody is shot while they are unarmed by a police officer, justice should be served. And if the person who is in the office is not willing to do that, then as a community, we must build the power to force them to do that. So that way it don't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican or independent. And every 2 or 4 or 6 years, you got to hope you got the right people in office to get the right thing done. No, you know what? You know what don't have to get reelected? Community-based organizations that have common ideology, or at least have common end goals that they want to get to, and are okay with having different methods. I'm okay with people having 20 different ways to get to liberation if their end goal is liberation. As long as their end goal is liberation, then they can take whatever separate road that they need to take. I'll make sure I do whatever is in my power to make sure the road that I'm taking can alleviate pressure off of the road that they taking, can try to have light and shine light on the road that they taking, and that's what we have to do collectively. It was It was collective issues that got us to this place. It was not one mindset or one ideology or one thought pattern that got us to this place. It was multiple people. It was conservatives got us to this place. Neoconservatives got us to this place. Neoliberals got us to this place. Democrats, Republicans, black, white, Middle Eastern, Asian. It was everybody who can be involved to get us to this issue has got us to this issue. Many people have profited off of police terrorism and mass incarceration and racial injustice. And unfortunately, some of the people who have profited off of it have been black people, have been brown people, have been people who started off in poverty, have been women, have been people who are gay or LGBTQ community members. It is people who start off oppressed and then they understand that oppression, but instead of trying to alleviate that oppression from the other people that's also disenfranchised and marginalized, they become co-opted, or they become so jaded that they just care about personal gain. And I've done everything in my power and everything that in my integrity to try to stay away from that, to try to stay away from personal gain. I have never done anything that I have never done or said anything that I thought was for the best for me, but was not the best for the collective goals or collective liberation. And I'm okay with people not agreeing with me. I'm a grown man. I don't have to be agreed with by everybody. The same way the same way it'll be racist people who don't agree with me, and anti-black people who don't agree with me. It'll be pro-black people who don't agree with me. It'll be people who think that they more for black people freedom than I'm for black people freedom who don't agree with me. And I'm okay with that. I'm gonna keep working towards what my end goal is. And my end goal is a collective goal of liberation. And in that collective goal of liberation, there are no absolutes. Nobody has a monopoly on justice. Nobody has a monopoly on truth. Nobody has a monopoly on methodology. But what I will do is I will continue to call out things that I disagree with. I will continue to call out things that I think are regressive and not progressive, that are backtracking and not getting us forward. And I think that taking pictures with police officers, whether it's with your child doing it, whether it's your cousin, your nephew, your niece, whether it's you, that is a negative thing. We do not need to be taking pictures with police officers as black people in this community. We need to be as far away from photographs with them as possible, because they are trying to co-opt black skin. They are using black bodies for politics. That is what they are doing. When this summer comes up, they're going to be trying to have barbecues and water guns and playing basketball and playing football and all this and that with these kids. Don't forget, these was the same people that was pepper spraying children, allowing children to be pepper sprayed. Don't forget that these are the same people that arrested a teenager, threw a teenager off a bike and arrested a teenager just for being present at a protest last summer. That is who these people are. These people that you are having out here with your children and taking pictures with your children, they will shoot your children down in the streets. If they perceive them as a threat, they will shoot your children down in the streets. If they feel that it is incentivized for them as officers, they will lock your child up. If they feel like they will get some type of promotion from the ostracization of your child from society, they will lock them up. This is the same. Remember, this is what I want you to think about. This is how the hypocrisies of this society and of this city at this moment. I have sat inside a city hall for hearings where they are charging. I've seen multiple young people be charged $500 for possession of 30 grams of weed or less. They get charged $500 in here into this kangaroo court that I spoke about earlier. Okay, now, in this same state, weed has been legalized. They got a dispensary that they got people going to. The mayor comes up and he talks about all the things he's going to do with the money to help out the black community and disenfranchised community with the money that they get from marijuana. All the while, they got black and brown people coming in here that I'm sure is not from affluent neighborhoods having to pay $500 fines because somebody got some weed on them. Okay, so now they getting money from fines. The city getting money from fines for the weed. Then they getting money from taxes from the weed. And then to keep you okay with the fact that now they profiting from the weed that they've been destroying people's lives with, they're telling you they gonna give you a little bit of cut of the weed money. That's how this stuff work. That's how this work. Those is terroristic acts too, because the police are the people that they use to deploy to confiscate that weed. The police, the people that they use to deploy to put out them citations. Those microaggressions is terroristic acts too. See, they can't do it as blatantly as they used to do it. So they've found a way. It's neo-terrorism. It's updated terrorism. it look a little bit differently, so it take you a little bit of time to catch on to it. And by the time you done caught on to it and you done started revolting, or uprising, they done started doing little small reforms here or there to make you okay. They gonna take 5 years to get rid of cash bail. 5 years to get rid of cash bail. What's up, my man? How you doing? How you doing? I'm doing all right.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you good. It's good to see you. Yep. And so all of these things are things that we have to take into account. The people that's sitting up there, think about this. They saying that they're going to get rid of cash bail because cash bail shouldn't be around, but they find way in 3 years or 5 years to get rid of the cash bail. So that means for 3 years or 5 years or however long each county take to it, this thing that they okay with being unjust and that they done said is unjust, they're going to allow for it to keep happening. They're going to allow to continue to profit off of it. After saying that they know that is something that should be outlawed. That's hypocrisy. All of these things are hypocrisies. The amount of people that they arrested last spring and summer, and the amount of people who have now had charges dropped, or who the police officers have, or who the state have offered some type of pleas for. Somebody got 8 charges, the state offered to drop 7 charges and just plea out to 1, and you get a small, some type of a small fine, or you got some type of community service. But they get rid of the other 7 charges. So then what was the basis of getting arrested the first time and getting charged with all of those charges? Think about that. How many times on average or per night do police officers harass community members and arrest community members, and then those same people end up having their charges dropped, or some type of plea is agreed to where some of the charges is dismissed, and then they cop to a lesser charge, which basically mean they shouldn't have been arrested for what they got charged with in the first place. This is all a game that's being played, and it's a game that's being played with predominantly black lives. They get up there and they have these press conferences. Think about this, and make sure you sharing this video too. I want you to think about this. You go and you watch that press conference that they had after that man went and shot up Don Carter's, and you go and watch the way that they talk and they stance, and you look at the newspapers afterwards, and you look at the comments and stuff like that afterwards, or some of them news articles that got shared. You look at the manner that the state's attorney talked, the manner that the police chief talked. Look at the manner that everybody talked around that Don Carter shooting, and then you go and you contrast that with the way they talked about that shooting at the mall at Cherry Valley. I ain't seen a single picture get released from that shooting at Don Carter, but they done show release some pictures from the shooting at Cherry Valley and they at the mall, and ain't nobody get hit with no bullets at the mall. Ain't nobody die at the mall. But the difference is the person who did the shooting at the mall was black. And so they made sure that they sent the message out. It's getting warm out. They want to make sure that they say, listen, I'm trying to watch my language. But they sending a message, and they trying to make sure that they keep black people in their place in this spring and this summer. And again, I'm not for any kind of inter-community violence. I'm not for any kind of violence at all, unless it is in the manner of self-defense. Because I think that we have to rise to a place of being past violence, because it's so self-destructive. It's so many guns that's out here. It's so many weapons that's out here. Nuclear weapons. If you've taken it to even a further extent, you got these, and I'm sure, and excuse my language, you got these white folks up in space, because that's what's predominantly up there, up in space, whether you believe they in space or not, and they got guns or whatever they got up in space. So we at a place where it's too many weapons for us to be trying to fix things through violence. So I'm not for violence, but it is a stark contrast with how this city and how this community and how this nation treats violence when it's done by white men than when it's done by black men. Even if that violence has a very different even if the violence does not lead to the same things. Okay, so the white man in that shooting at Don Carter murdered people, and you never heard nobody say nothing like, we're sending a message with this arrest. Don't come to Rock for doing mass shootings. Don't come to Rock for trying to shoot up public places. We not gonna stand for it. We gonna arrest you before you get the chance to do it. Don't try it here. It was no message like that sent. It was no message like that sent. It was only grief for the victims, and that's how it should be. I understand that. That's appropriate. Now let's contrast that with the shooting at the mall. And again, no pictures put out from that Don Carter shooting. Not a single picture has been released of that man doing no kind of shooting, walking in or walking out just to prove that he the right person. But they went and they arrested that boy for that Cherry Valley shooting. They put out pictures of him standing inside the mall with a shirt. They put out pictures of someone holding a gun outside of the mall, and then they put out pictures of the young man mugshot. Some of the news stations showed the picture of the person holding the gun, the suspect, showed the picture of somebody in the mall, and then showed the picture of the mugshot of the boy and said that's the young man, and said that's who did the shooting. He guilty. He done been guilty and he'll be proven innocent. Now, and then the state's attorney got up there and said, "We will find you." The newspaper the next day, the headline in the article said, "We will find you." They trying to make sure that they send a message. When it's a black boy, when it's one of these black boys out here that that committed some type of a crime, they got to send a message to every black person through them. When a white person commit the crime, it's an individualistic act, and it says nothing about the white community. And that's hypocrisy. And that's a form of terrorism. That's a form of psychological warfare. That's what that is. And until it is spoken of as such, we will never get past it. Until these acts are spoken of with the fervor in which they demand, until these acts are spoken of with the passion in which they demand, until these actions are spoken of with the anger in which they demand. It is people that they released a young man who sat in that jail for a year for false charges. It's been people over the spring and the summer who was mentally traumatized and physically assaulted, still dealing with physical and mental wounds from the things that they experienced over the summer from these terroristic police officers. And then the state gonna pass a police reform bill. The nation gonna pass a police reform bill. Different cities putting out reports saying that their police officers handled the protest wrong. And sitting here in Rockford, the mayor ain't said nothing about them police officers doing nothing wrong. The police chief ain't said nothing about the police officers doing nothing wrong. Ain't no alderman, ain't nobody on no school board, ain't nobody with no type of power done did nothing to try to make sure to force people to say that the things that was done last spring and last summer was wrong. All the while, the nation is saying things that was done was wrong. All the while, the nation is saying it needs to be things changed with the police department. All the while, they doing all of this lip service and talking to you about all of these small things that they done changed and talking about community review boards. Where the video of Tyrus Jones being shot at? They used that young man Tyrus Jones being shot as a political chess piece. The same way they did when that 3-year-old child was shot. They used it as a political chess piece to divide and conquer black people. And then by doing such, to divide and conquer anybody else who may be aligned with the issues black people are out here fighting for. We cannot afford to pick and choose who we want justice for. I want justice for anybody who has any kind of wrong done to them. Anybody. I do not believe in an eye for an eye. We'll all be blind. And as a black man, as a black person in this community, we don't even got enough bodies to go eye for eye, whether it's within or without. So we have to get to a place of forgiveness. We have to get to a place of empathy. And that's not one side, that's not two sides, that's all types of sides. It's gonna be a struggle to get to that place of empathy and understanding. We got families out here who done been and groups of people that done been in tribalistic wars out here. But you know what? The gangster disciples are a failure of the society. The vice lords are a failure of this society. Wacos are a failure of this society. Crips and Bloods and Black Stones, all of that is a failure of this society. The people that's involved in some of these street issues, those issues was there before they was even born or thought of. This nation has benefited off of black death. This nation has benefited off of black addiction. This nation has benefited off of black miseducation, out of black impoverishedness, out of black homelessness, off of black mental trauma. This nation has benefited off of it the same way. And if the nation has benefited off of it, then the state has, and then the city has. So we have to get to a place of unity. We have to get to a place of of continuous struggle, not of struggling when it is warm outside, not of struggling when it is convenient, not of struggling when it is somebody who is close to you who has been victimized, but of struggling regularly. People may disagree with the manner or the method or some of the things that I say or the way in which I go about getting things done. But I hope that every person who disagrees with those things sees the same passion that I have, sees the same determination and dedication that I have, and I hope that they use those same, and I hope that they see that and they double what I got to try to out-organize me. That's what I want you to do. You disagree with me, you out-organize me. You disagree with us, you out-organize us. You out-mobilize us. That's what I want to see people do. That's the place that we need to get to. I'm fine with struggling internally the same way I'm fine with struggling externally. But if I'm going to struggle internally, we need to be struggling towards a common goal, struggling towards getting solutions, struggling towards change. These police officers, these lawyers, these state's attorneys, these judges, these politicians, all of these people have profited off of division for years, have profited off of oppression and exploitation for years. And they profited off of people being quiet about it for years. Another part of the reason that I'm projected as some type of a leader or projected as some person that's in charge is because I'm loud about my beliefs. I'm loud about my stances. More of us need to be loud. They benefit off of us being quiet. That's how they win, off of us being quiet. It ain't enough of us for us to be quiet. We need every person who done been traumatized to come out and speak so that they know that it's true. So if you're going to disagree with me, disagree with me loudly. Be loud and disagree. I'm fine with that. Let people disagree with me. All right, this tablet finna die. We outside.